Hi, everyone. I'm Scotty Madonia.
And I'm Augie Bello.
And welcome to Wasted Potential.
So today's guest is a 25-year-old clothing designer, entrepreneur, content creator, and founder. Oh my God, I'm struggling so hard. And founder of Unfinished Legacy.
Everyone, please welcome to the show, Brema. How you doing,
Hey,
Brema?
how's it going, guys? Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Beautiful intro.
Thank you.
We've been practicing it for a while, and still I'm still struggling.
The sad thing is we actually did practice.
We did practice it.
It's not even a joke. We did rehearse it.
Yeah.
Well,
where
are you coming to us from?
So I'm currently in Los Angeles. Moved here about 5 months ago.
Oh, awesome.
And you guys are in New York, right?
Yeah, we're based out of New York.
Yeah.
The way we typically like to start the show, it's called Wasted Potential. Obviously, within clothing and designing and content creation, you use all of your potential and really show it, which is amazing. But the point of the first question of this podcast is to find out something that, let's say you weren't doing clothing or designing. What is your secret sauce, and what's second to that?
I'll have to say soccer. I grew up playing soccer like every day. I was every single day. And then until I moved here to the States, I was born in Sudan, raised in Kenya. So, Africa, soccer is a huge, part of like the culture and part of like the enjoyment. So I did grow up playing soccer most of my life until I moved here. Then that's kind of things shifted and focused more on the art and just like the individual like pursuit.
How old were you when you moved from Sudan to Kenya?
So Sudan is a really messed up country. Like there's a lot of war, civil war, and my family migrated from Sudan to Kenya when the war was undergoing. So as refugees, we moved to Kenya at this refugee camp called Kakuma Camp. That's where a lot of refugees from neighboring countries like Ethiopia, Somalia, when their countries are at war, they'll, migrate to Kenya. So like the army doesn't really cross over because, it's a different country. So there's a lot of like refugee settlement in Kenya.
So I guess, could you, give us kind of the background of first, like how was your time within Kenya and what made your parents or your family move into Milwaukee in 2010?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first, settling in Kenya was just solely for refuge, seeking refuge and seeking a place of safety. So that's number one. And then number two, it's like always like schooling was such a big part of like my upbringing. My parents always, valued education. So throughout living in Kenya as refugees, the United Nations kind of heard about us and our story. And they've helped a lot of families, come over to America, Australia, and all these like developed countries, as a way of like giving them, a new life. So for us, like the UN helped us get out here to the States. And that was like a 5-year process, from like finding the right, housing for us, finding, making sure that we're undergoing all these different like background check tests and making sure we were good to go. So it was like a 5-year process. So throughout that process, we were moving a lot throughout Kenya. So my upbringing has been a lot of like moving around from like school to school, neighborhood to neighborhood, like city to city, until 2010 when we finally got the opportunity to come to Milwaukee.
Wow.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's where we settled. And a lot of times like people ask me, why did you guys pick Milwaukee? Like what's in Milwaukee for you? But it wasn't really our option. It wasn't really, we couldn't really pick that. The UN, they were the ones that did that, and Milwaukee, it's like cheap to live. Yeah. So it's a bit affordable. So when we moved here in 2010, like the first thing they kind of lined us up with everything, like our paperwork, like Social Security, green card, and then kind of got us in that process. So like after 5 years of living here, we could get our citizenship, which we ended up getting after 5 years of living here, and then put us in schooling. So yeah, Milwaukee was kind of like the first home where I just like lived for more than, like a good amount of time. So
How old were you when you moved? So in 2010, how old were you?
I was 14. I was 14 years old. So came here, went to 8th grade year. And then after that, I went to a high school where I spent 4 years. Yeah, 10 years.
How do you think that difference of growing up in Africa and then moving to America, how do you think that has affected your fashion sense in terms of how you design clothing? Having that like kind of
Oh,
contrast.
yeah. So, man, I mean, growing up, like there was really no buying clothes. Like the number one priority was like kind of like food, water, and just that.
Mhm.
So clothes was really secondary. Even to this day, like it's weird that I'm in this space because I think clothes is just for me. It's just a more function over. I guess like I'm slowly like trying to like bring aesthetic into I guess my wardrobe and the brand that I'm currently running, but it's been a lot of like thrifting and getting like hand me downs and secondhand. Even like when we moved here in 2010, I remember getting made fun of because I didn't really have like that good looking clothes. Everything was just hand me down and like Goodwill clothes. So and the way that influenced, I guess, my design practice right now is just like seeing what really matters when it comes to clothes. And for me, it's like that more than design, like design have to like speak something to it. Like there should be a message that's always attached to anything that I put out, especially as an artist. And I feel like everyone should kind of have some sort of like message with whatever they do put out in this world. Because that's how other people can connect with it. But besides the messaging, I try to like really make sure like whatever garments we're using are quality. Because at the end of the day, like there's people that might buy the shirt, one time and they would want to wear it for the next like 5 years or more than that. And I want to make sure that our product could hold that test of time. So and tying that back to my upbringing, a lot of times like when we bought something, we made sure that it could last us so long because we didn't have the money to just keep replacing these clothes.
Do you think that the fact that fashion when you're growing up in Kenya, it's more about utility instead of design at that point? Do you think that is kind of the reason why you wanted to get into clothing versus playing soccer? Because you said soccer is very prominent there, but do you think it's kind of like it interested you in the fact that it isn't something that was so readily available, and that's why you wanted to get into design?
Yeah. So, I mean, I went through this like transitional phase in high school where I'm a very competitive person, and I like I put so much of my emotion into whatever it is that I do. So realizing soccer, there's a big like team dynamic, and a lot of times I'll get really frustrated if we lost a game. It's just from that like competitive like nature, and like realizing that and like acknowledging like, oh, this is a part of me. Let me take a step back and like really look inward. I did like spending a lot of time by myself. So a lot of like hobbies after soccer was like anything that I could do just by myself, which is like picking up skateboarding. I got back to like drawing and painting, and just anything that was just like very focused on just the individual and like the individual like self-expression was like kind of what I leaned into heavily like throughout that like transitional period in high school.
Absolutely. I have to say, you were talking about the quality, and I'm wearing the shirt currently right now, which I absolutely love. Thank you so much for sending me. And I will say, especially the sweatshirt. The sweatshirt, I remember taking the sweatshirt out of the package and being like, this is the best feeling sweatshirt. It feels rugged but comfortable. So I will say that that you definitely have that down, and the designs are incredible. But I guess
Thank you.
more into your design, we know that you had interned at the Milwaukee Art Museum, and from some research, we heard that. Can you, I guess, give us the story behind where you found the name Unfinished and what that word spoke to you?
Yeah. So, I mean, throughout that, transition period in high school, so I realized every summer throughout high school, I could do an internship, and a lot of them every single one of them revolved around art and making art and self-expression. So my sophomore year, I interned at the Milwaukee Art Museum, and the internship was I think a 6-week long internship. It was paid, and the whole concept was at the end of the internship we'll create artwork that would go on side of like the city buses. So it's like 4 city bus. So we were all divided into like 4 groups, and each group had like a bus that were responsible to like decorate and have some like positive message on them. And throughout that process, I learned all these different techniques of making art, and screen printing happened to be one of them, which really caught my attention. And I was like, I fell in love with the whole process of like, oh, this is how t-shirts are made. Like, wow, this is crazy. Like, this is something that I've always wanted to do. So like being able to like discover that was like super cool to me. And around the same time, I was also like skateboarding and doing graffiti. I was like tagging the word legacy all over Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like my tag name. So throughout the internship, every week we would do like these circles where we just talk about a certain topic. One of them that I remember that was kind of funny, I brought up the other day, was we were asked what was our birth sign. And I didn't know what that meant. Everyone was like naming all these like crazy words. I'm like, I've never heard of a Cancer or like Sagittarius. I was like, what are these words?
You haven't been to an art school in New York City.
when it came to like my turn, they're like, okay, so what's your birth sign? I was like, what does that mean? I was like, oh, an eagle. Like I resonate with an eagle, they're fierce and stuff.
Yep.
And everyone just bursted out laughing. And I was like, wow, and then I gave them my month and my date of birth. I was like, oh, you're what is it? December 28th. Why am I forgetting this?
Is that
a
no, it's not Aquarius. I know Aquarius is January because my girlfriend is an Aquarius.
See, I guess we're all.
I know nothing about astrology at all.
Capricorn.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I guess it shows how important signs are to me. I don't even remember. But the one particular day though that we sat in a circle, we were asked to describe ourselves with one word, and someone next to me used the word unfinished. And to me, that word really stuck with me, resonated with me. And as an individual, like I have so many goals, so many aspirations. I have so much growth, and all of that is unfinished. So doing that after work, I was walking home and I tied the 2 words unfinished legacy. And it just made so much sense. I had all these like imageries of like the people I look up to, like MLK and Nelson Mandela, like all these like incredible human beings that have like such a immense, amount of legacy, and that we're still building onto those to this day. So it just made sense then. And I was like, that's what I'm going to call my brand. And I'm just going to, after the internship, I invested some money into a starter kit for screen printing. And I started screen printing in my basement. I would take all the garments to school and my friends would buy it. And that's kind of how the idea blossomed from there.
So tell me if I'm wrong, but this brand has really existed for over a decade. How many years is this? Have you been working on this?
Man, I mean, since sophomore year in high school, that's like 2013 or 2014.
Wow.
So around then, so it's like eight years. But the thing is, like, I never really did it like full time. It was always just kind of like that, as artists and as people who have like passion, a lot of times it's really hard to transition from like the societal idea of like, oh, you have to go to school, you have to graduate, you have to get a job. There's no really encouragement to like pursue your passion. And that was like the most scariest thing that I've ever had to do was like believe in myself. And I wasn't able to do that until like COVID, because I had no choice to like, I had no choice but to like spend some time and like pursue the brand. And that's when everything clicked. I was like, oh, if I apply 110% into this idea, it could really like be a full-time thing. And it took me so long, man. Like even to this day, I'm like, wow, it really took me that long. I was so scared to like I never really believed in myself to be able to do this full time.
So what were you doing? You said there's other things you're trying to transition out of that more traditional mindset. What were you doing in your off time when you weren't, printing shirts?
So I was so after high school, I went to college. Like, we came here so I could go to school. So I went to college, dropped out second semester. Didn't tell my parents, that I like the next 2 years after dropping out was probably the hardest for me. And I decided I'm going to join this program called AmeriCorps. So it's like a 10-month program. Public Ally specifically is the part of the AmeriCorps program. But 10 months, I was placed in a nonprofit, to help them build capacity. So I went through this program for 10 months. And then you could do it for 2 years. So then the second year I did it again. And I was placed at like the Milwaukee Public School District. So I was working at the central office and helping the public school district with their, media, like photography and just storytelling. And then the first year I did it at True School, this urban arts program that would engage youth with like social justice issues through art. So a lot of it like surrounded what I was interested in. So after the 2 years, I ended up leaving, and I started a creative agency with like 3 other friends. We did that for about like 2 years. But even throughout all these process, I thought about Unfinished Legacy every single day. There was not a waking moment where I didn't think of like the brand. So I was always doing it on the side throughout those years. And then until COVID, that's when like, okay, I could do this full time.
So during COVID, I'd like to talk, I guess, a little bit about, we saw in some articles you'd mentioned your business manager. Let me know if I'm saying her name right, but or maybe you can tell us her name because I feel like I'll pronounce it wrong. Is it Jenny Tate or Janae Tate?
Oh, Jean Tate. Jean Tate is one of my homies I met through that this after school program. Yeah.
So do you still work? Is she still part of, I guess, your team and stuff, or?
Yeah. He's like right out. He's actually right.
Oh, he's right
out
there
here right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
I guess
he's been like, day one. Kind of everything happened organically. Like he saw that I was like making clothes. I was printing, and at first, like he bought a few of my shirt, and then was really just more interested. And kind of from there, we just started working together.
That's awesome. So do you think that during that time period, like sometimes I struggle because maybe there's a lot of work coming in, but as one person who's, in control of a brand or, whatever you're doing, it can get a bit overwhelming. Do you think that throughout COVID, you're able to find people that you could delegate work to and who are able to help you fulfill, I guess, that end goal? Well, obviously there's no end goal. It just keeps on going, but.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, I mean, during COVID, I was actually really sick. Like the first month that thing broke out, I was really sick. I'm pretty sure I had it, but they were encouraging everyone not to go in the hospitals because So I was like sick for like 2-3 weeks.
Wow.
I've never been so sick in my life. So from after I recovered, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go in the studio. We were part of this like artist in residency program. I was like, I'm gonna lock myself in the studio and just create and just do whatever it takes. So I was like documenting the whole process. Like any new pieces I made, I would like take a photo, post it on Instagram, and then started posting on TikTok. And throughout this whole process, I had Jean with me. Like we were just doing it all together, just like printing. And some days we'll like sleep in the studio, just like working late. And then things started to pick up just by like documenting and posting on social media. Like people were like really starting to like take interest in the brand just because like we were sharing everything. And at the time too, like everyone was on their phone, so it was a little easier. Like you post something, everyone like sees it, react to it, and then that like encourages to like just keep going. And then 2 of my other friends who I just like kind of known throughout just like my upbringing in Milwaukee. I had put out this like post on Instagram saying I was looking for an intern, someone who could just like help us document and like help us in the studio. And Michael, who's now a full-time employee and we're all like working full time here. So Michael, both of them are actually Michael. So the one Michael is like doing video, and the other Michael is like helping me with the website. So
Awesome.
Yeah, around that time, and we had a few like viral, TikTok videos that like really helped like drive a lot of traffic to our website, and then our Instagram eventually, and that's how we kind of slowly started to like build a following.
How long was it once you started really devoting time to posting to social media where you had that first big viral hit?
So I mean, at the time, like there was nothing else I was doing. So 24 hours, that's all I was, at the studio. Like all I thought about was like, okay, like what's the next thing we're gonna do? Like what's the next print, or what are we printing on? So like during COVID, it was all like full on, like full time. Even though like in the beginning, we weren't really getting, like we didn't make much money to pay ourselves like a full time, like pay. We were still devoting that amount of time because we didn't have anything else going on. And then from there, maybe, I don't know, maybe like in the same, like maybe 2 months, 3 months, then we started like making, I guess, a income, and I started paying everybody who was part of the team.
Do you think that the brand would be where it is if there wasn't that kind of 2-year period where COVID was happening?
Man, I don't think so. Just because like it would have taken me a little longer to like even like build the courage to take that jump. So it's I mean it's really hard to say. I would say it would have taken me a little bit. Yeah.
In those years leading up to that time, when the pandemic happened and when you decided I'm really going to take this seriously, in those years leading up to it, were you making any decent money, or was it really just here and there?
I mean, it wasn't, even with the agency, it was a startup. Like with the 2 years doing the AmeriCorps program, it was paid the salary of like, I think I was making like 18,000 a year, which it wasn't that much. And then after that, we did the agency. So startup, it's like working a lot of hours and barely really making anything. Mm-hmm. But that's when I started to pick up like kind of like being more business savvy and just like seeing how like the startups operated. And since it was like 4 of us and like 3 of the other friends were like more experienced in this world, so I was like learning a lot from them. Even to this day, there's certain things I do that's like from like those experiences, like the way I approach like either business meetings or emails or like just like small things where I'm just like, if it wasn't for those like 3, like the past like experiences, I don't know how I would be able to like approach this. So a lot of like experience from the past that like led up to like me being where I am now and like being able to just like, I guess, move forward too.
What's a flaw that you very specifically try to avoid? Because I'm the kind of person, I think a lot of people are, that I don't really learn from people who do things well. I learn from when people mess up. That's where I get like, because it's like when you see someone do something really well,
you're like, how'd they get there?
You see it, but when you see someone mess up, it like digs into your head. So what are the specific things, like something specific that you learned working in these other businesses that you're like, I cannot do this. This is something I absolutely have to avoid.
Oh yeah. So like even just, just reflecting, I think for me, like one thing that I truly enjoy doing is coming up with ideas and finding ways to execute. Like anything that has to do with numbers or like computers, words, like it's like things that I try to avoid. Like I don't really have the patience to try to like learn how to like articulate my thoughts into words or like numbers. Like when it comes to accounting and stuff, that's still things that I'm struggling with right now. Like trying to like find an accountant that could make sure I could just like kind of almost delegate all that too, and just trust that there will be best interest for us. That's something I'm still going through right now. And I really don't have patience for numbers and and stuff like that. So, and then another thing too, like it's just like emails and like the website. There's just very like tedious stuff that you need a person who's really passionate about like that type of work to be able to like execute it, or else like even I remember like the first time we launched our website, we had like spent myself and Michael, we spent probably like 9 hours at a coffee shop, just like working on this thing. And I was just like, it was just grueling. And those are like things that I just like, I want to just find people who are like passionate about that and just delegate it to them. And that's something I'm also like, you know, as someone who's like, okay, this is my idea, this is my vision. I'm something that I'm growing into is, you know, fostering a team that I could just delegate work to and trusting that they could execute it with care. Because at the end of the day, like all of this is like passion based. And if it's not being done with care, I wouldn't want to do it. So trusting and being able to delegate is such a big thing that I struggled with for so long, but I'm slowly starting to grow into that leadership position where I'm trusting people and delegating tasks.
I totally understand that, because I'm in a place right now where I like there's a lot of emails coming in and it's good, like there's work opportunities, but I've gotten to the point where it's like music, like how much I play versus how much I'm answering people and invoicing people and getting back to people has become almost like
it's like you're a secretary almost for yourself.
Yeah. Was there ever a point, I guess, before you had this big team, like where, because right now I feel like I'm in a spot where like I've wanted for years, and in everything I do, I've always wanted bigger and bigger and more followers, and let's grow it to here, and I want to do this and that. Was there ever a point where you felt like, okay, like where was that point where you figured out, hey, I kind of need a team and this is going where I want it to be? Was that always, did you always have a team? Was Gene always kind of by your side and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Gene was always around, and I feel like I've been very, I would say very lucky to just have friends around me who were just willing and just willing to help out, and they saw this vision too along with me, and they were willing to invest their time and energy to make sure this happened. And Milwaukee, there's not really much going on, so when you see an idea, you know, it's starting and someone's putting a lot of care into an idea, you kind of want to be a part of that. So I've been fortunate for it to happen that way. Everything was kind of organic. I've never had to like, oh, I need to hire this person, start looking for, you know, employees. None of it has been like that. So it's all just kind of organically. This is like, so Gene, like there's like things that he enjoys. He's like, he loves, like he DJs, he loved like organizing events. So like whenever we do pop-ups or anything like that, he's handling it. So it's just been like, it's starting to like recognize like people who are around who want to be part of this vision, like their strength, what they enjoy doing and what they want to be doing long term, and like delegating those tasks to them. Because at the end of the day, they find enjoyment and there's like a sense of fulfillment. So that's kind of like how I try to like keep our work environments, like whatever like fulfills you, like let's have you doing that. Like let's not have you do things. Of course, there's days where like, okay, like today, like Mondays are usually like, okay, like we're just working with numbers and like we're making sure like analytics and like all this stuff is getting taken care of. But like, it's kind of like part of like the growing up, that those are days where I'm like, okay, bro, like we're grown ups today. Like we're like doing numbers and no one's like really complaining. So there's days like that in the office. But everything has happened organically and just recognizing that there's like a lot of like tasks that need to get done as a brand, and like us as a team, we all kind of like take initiative too in areas where it's like, okay, these needs to get done. I enjoy this area of the business. Let me handle it. So it's just kind of been like that.
I was gonna ask, because you know, has there been anything that you've run into now that it's not just your creative passion, but now it is a business? Have you run into anything in this industry that makes you really question it? Because I know, like, I experience things. I've been a musician my whole life, and now I work in television, and you run into things where you go, I really don't like this specific thing about this industry. It starts to, turn you off about what you're doing because there's a lot of, politics involved, not, actual politics, but like inter business politics and all of this. And there's all these, like, these attitudes that people have. Have you experienced anything in the fashion industry that has kind of like gotten you down for a point where you had to really bring yourself back up because it kind of blindsided you?
Yeah, man. Man. I mean, the fashion industry, dude, it's,
It sounds brutal.
we're like, oh yeah, it's very brutal. Even just like, I mean, a big part of me is trying to be like conscious of just everything around me. And I know fashion is definitely one of the biggest like polluter, and that in itself, like it's really hard for me to grasp sometimes, because like here we are, we're a business and we're putting out clothes, and I'm trying to make sure we're putting out quality stuff that doesn't just get thrown away fast. Yeah. And then there's also like the battle of like seeing some big corporation who are just like pumping out stuff without really much thought or like trying to like communicate anything meaningful across. And also like people stealing designs. That's like, those are like things that are just like, man, it's I hate to experience these things, but it's part of it. It's part of the industry. And then the other thing too, like that's like really big recently, it's just like the supply chain, and it's something that I have to deal with too. It's like this headache that kind of as a business owner I have to in a way like partake in, and seeing like how we could solve that for ourselves, and how are these like things influencing the way our business structure is going to be moving forward. There's a lot. There's so much, I guess, in the fashion industry. It's like, in a way, it's like also like it's a ruthless industry. I would say. Yeah.
Quick question. I know that in the past you had said that you wanted to get into a spot in which you could create your own blank garments so that you could then print on them. Is that still in the works, or is that something that you've gotten to? Or
yeah. No, that's definitely it's definitely in the works. Right now, being out here in LA was kind of the first step for being able to like accomplish that idea. We're constantly like networking, growing our network. Now we have a good good amount of resource to the point where like when we're ready for that step, we could implement it with no worries.
That's great.
But the other thing that I didn't really keep in mind was how expensive being able to like develop your own blank and running that whole infrastructure is. It's like a whole engine outside of like what we're currently operating.
Yeah.
So it's just making sure like we're in a good place right now, making sure this engine is running well before I could even like try to go into a different area of the business and focus a lot of my energy into. I'm hoping in the next 2 years. I was very ambitious earlier on, like by the end of this year, I want to have our own blank, and I want to be able to like make sure like we're making that happen. But as I navigate through this industry, I start to like see, what's possible and what's not in a timely manner, I guess.
And on that topic of pollution, obviously from a quality let me feel this shirt. I have not felt that.
Give it a feel.
That's a very high quality shirt.
It is a nice shirt.
But like, from a quality standpoint, you don't have to worry about pollution because obviously the clothing is going to last a long time. It's not just going to get torn apart and then people are going to throw it away. But one thing that keeps people buying new clothes is stuff goes in style and it goes out of style. It doesn't matter if there's a bunch of people who have a lot of money and go, it's not in style anymore, get rid of it. So do you have like, what is your conscious balance of designing something that people want from a style sense and that they're going to also want, 8, 10, 12 years down the road? Are you actively seeking out, this is what I think people want, or are you just kind of hunkering down and doing what you do and say that this is just going to, stay relevant because it's my own style? Are you just doing what you do, or are you seeking out kind of trend forecasting on a consistent basis?
Yeah. I mean, for us, there's really no trend. There's no
Hmm.
forecasting or anything like that. One of our, I guess, part of like our business structure and ethos is to create like timeless designs with meaningful ideas. So that's that comes first without anything else. Like whatever designs we put out have to meet those, standards. Is it going to be something that's timeless? And is it going to be something that's communicating a meaningful idea? The brand name in itself, it is something that's timeless,
Yeah.
like 20 years from now, like legacy is still an important topic. Whatever we do, that's what we're going to get remembered by. And my goal for a brand is to be able to bring this message across, which is pursuing your passions. And if you pursue your passions, you could impact the world in a positive, in a positive light, and leave a legacy that's impacting. So that's the idea that we're trying to communicate, no matter the design, no matter what we're doing. That comes first, and then the quality of the garment, of course, is the second thing. And I know like certain garments come in style and go out of style, but like a t-shirt and a hoodie,
Yep.
it's like two timeless things. Like you could, I have like so many books of like Muhammad Ali. I'm seeing him like in the training cap. He's wearing it's just a simple t-shirt and a hoodie and a sweatsuit while jogging and practicing. And like these things are like things that I like really like I'm conscious of, and like seeing like what items are timeless and what item come in style. And sometimes if something is in style and we want to be a part of, participate in that moment, we probably just do a very like limited run and something that could just be passed down,
Yeah.
down the generation. And that's kind of like my focus as a brand, is to be able to like make pieces that like someone buys and like, oh, I'm really hyped on this. I want to pass it down to like my kid or something like that.
I just wanted to touch on, you were saying like you would do some limited runs, and um, we've seen that a lot of your designs relate to Black Lives Matter and are very focused on social justice. I know that you've done work where you've raised proceeds for True School. How much of social justice goes into you and into your brand? So like when you're designing something, how much, how do you figure out, when is my time to like shine and when is my time where I could really make a difference with what I do?
Yeah. So, I mean, I even thinking as myself, coming from a war-torn country, being a refugee for a while and coming to America where there's a lot of like injustice and stuff, just and just seeing like Milwaukee is probably one of the most segregated cities, in the entire country, and that's where I got to live for when I landed in the States. So
Yeah.
I think social justice is just, in a way, it's just going to be a part of me. Like it's something that I'll always try to participate in, and what better way to participate than using my art? At the end of the day, that's what's going to speak the loudest. And when the Black Lives Matter movement happened, I decided to participate in it by making, some T-shirts and going out to the protests and handing them out. And that was just, there was really no much like thought into it. Like
Yeah.
it was just, in a way, it's just like a part of like my personal responsibility is I have all these like, personal ethos and beliefs, and a lot of times those things translate into my artwork. And depending on the times, it might be very prevalent. And sometimes when the climate is different, like maybe I'm more focused on other topics, which I'm not constantly like, that's like the forefront of like a lot of our designs, but like it's always in the back of my head. Like when the opportunity comes where I could use my art as a way to communicate a message, I'll participate. And which comes down to like the most recent shirt we did. We just like dropped the 100 t-shirt on the website this morning. sold out in like a minute. Okay, it didn't really sell out because we gave them out for free. All you had to do was pay shipping. You know, it's for me, it's like, you know, war has been part of like, you know, my upbringing. When I was born in a war torn country. So with the current climate, you know, I decided to make the fuck war tees because it has affected me and my family and a lot of like my friends. So in a way, and just perfect timing with the climate right now, I decided to kind of, I guess, speak my mind and even just besides just speaking my mind, I'm just raising a little bit of awareness. Like there's this going on. Like, of course, like everyone that's heard of what's going on in Ukraine, just through social media. But like for me to like create something that's tangible, something that I could wear and walk around the street and somebody else might see and be like, oh shit, that's a reminder. Like we're in the States, like even though everything is smooth and cozy over here, like there's other people in different countries struggling with these other things and just being aware of that and seeing a way of like a contribution, whatever that might look like to anybody, either donating or just raising awareness or like sharing a article or whatever that might look like. We just all need to kind of like participate in these like things that might not necessarily affect us, but like affecting other people. Because at the end of the day, like I care about humanity, and that comes first, you know.
And how do you deal? Because I mean, obviously, people who love the company, when you do these political statements, they're going to buy the shirts. But as we all know, the internet, when politics and race are brought up, is just the most coddly place on the earth, isn't it? The internet, you know, everyone gets really nice when you bring in politics. So how do you deal with the fact that, you know, people are going to come in and no matter what you do, as soon as you bring up an important issue like that, you're going to get a ton of blowback? How do you deal with that? Does that ever discourage you at all?
I mean, there's times like you get hate comment or like you get just one person who's like really mad and DMs you all these like hate things. But at the end of the day, like I can't really change my skin color. I can't change, you know, how I show up in different rooms or even like across social media. And for me, that's the least I could do is stand up and even just taking those comments or whatever. It's nothing compared to what a lot of like people who came before me had to like endure. So
of course.
It's usually, I always think back to a lot of the people I look up to, like stood up for what they believed in. And that's really something that I hope as I grow as an individual and as an artist, like I could have the courage to speak up my mind and speak on what I believe in. And at the end of the day, there's no brand without the individuals involved in the brand. So
that's true. I guess there's a couple more, I guess, quick questions for you. One being, you've done some collaborations and you've spoken to Vogue and Levi's. How did those collaborations come to be? Did they find your work through social media? And what was it like working with some big brands like that?
Yeah, so I remember Levi's was, I think Vogue came in, or they both came in around the same time. One came in first and the next one came the day after. But I remember just by posting on social media, you know, it's crazy that I feel like we don't really think about this a lot, where it's like how many people actually see your work through social media. And you never know who might be seeing your work. They might not interact with it. They might not follow you, but like they come across it and they see it and they recognize it. Like Augie, you know, like your work is on, you know, on Instagram Explore page all the time. So it's like you never know who comes across it. And like, and for me, like just being, I think the most important thing I've learned, even like coming up, like reputation is everything. So that's part of like your personal brand. So it's like not having things that are like negative attached to you, like is very helpful. Cause like a lot of times, like with the Vogue article, that just came off from like someone who's like following me for a long time and they were connected to somebody. And when they saw me participating in this movement, they decided to forward my info to the writer, and they reached out to me. So it all happened organically in that sense. And with Levi's, that one was a little bit like strategic. Just because I knew, like, I was using Levi's for a long time. Like, I was printing on their denim, and I knew I had built a strong enough of a community that I could like make some noise and like grab their attention. So I posted this like this image of me, with all these like printed like denim behind me, and I asked my community, like, hey, my goal this year is to do a collaboration with Levi's. You guys can make this happen. Just all you have to do is tag them. Bro, everyone went crazy on the comments. Probably had like 500 comments in such a small period. And of course, awesome. Levi's, they're going to see that. It's like 500 comments just mentioning you. Like, if you got mentioned so many times, you'd be like, whoa, what's going on? Let me see what's going on. It could be negative, it could be positive, but I have to see what's going on. So they saw my page, like, moments later, they like DM'd me like, hey, we saw your post. We think you have amazing designs. Like, let's work on something. And then from there, it just kind of, went about. So a lot of these things are like organic, not really much, I think, thought goes into it. But the other thing too is, like, if you build a community of like people that really, really like believe in you, they can make the world go around for you,
You're right. Absolutely.
And that's just off solely from me sharing my experiences and being able to just be transparent with everybody on social.
Is there any way, most of your designs have butterflies on them, and I know there's a real cool story behind that, and I'd like you to kind of explain what the symbolism is and how you ended up putting butterflies on shirts.
Yeah, definitely. So when I was working at the agency, I knew I had this like screen printing set up in my parents' basement, and I really wanted to. I really truly enjoy screen printing. So, but working at the agency, I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, oh, I want to go home and print something today, and I didn't know what I was going to print. I didn't want to just print the brand name, and at the time, like, there was butterflies like flying around. So that was like the initial like draw. I was like, oh, cool. Okay, I have something that I can go print now. So when I went home, I had like these, pair of like thrifted denim jeans that were white, and I just printed like butterflies all over the pants. And then I posted it on social media. I was like, hey, if you guys ever have ideas and you don't act on them right away, it's kind of, you're kind of like losing the I guess, I don't know how I worded it, but it was just something about like, if you have ideas, just act on them right away. And that post happened to just kind of captures everyone's attention, because like, I feel like no one's really seen like butterflies being printed on denim pants like that. And it was very captive. And also the caption like spoke along the line of just, executing ideas. So I received a lot of great comments from that post, and a lot of people are like interested in like purchasing it. And I was like, I only just made one. And then reflecting on that just small moment, I was like, okay, if I'm going to print this again, I got to like make sure there's like a meaning to it than just like aesthetic. So I started to like dig for like meanings, and right away, like butterfly is a symbol for like immigrants. So like migration, and I've migrated throughout my whole life in search for opportunities. So that's like my family's history. And that's a lot of families' history. A lot of people who are like in the States, that's kind of like part of their story, is like coming here for like opportunities and taking advantage of those opportunities. So that was the unique tie to the butterfly with my story. And then the second one, of course, is like the transformation phases, like metamorphosis. We all of us can relate to that. That's one of the more common one. And I started to like dig a little bit deeper, and I found this like quote from Naya Rivera, and the quote goes, butterflies can't see their wings, so they can't see how truly beautiful they are, but everybody else can. I'm not sure if that's if the quote is scientifically true, but like I really like identified with it so much, because for most of my upbringing, and even like when I moved here, a lot of people like saw that I was like talented and like, oh, you could do something with art. But I never truly saw that about myself, you know. So like the beauty, attaching that to like talent and values, I didn't really see much value from my art. So for the longest time, I really struggled with believing in myself and like knowing that I could contribute to this world in any form. But like as 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 I like reflect, I'm slowly starting to like realize, okay, whatever I'm putting out to this world is meaningful, and I'm slowly starting to see that with, and that's a lot of credit to a lot of people who like a lot of my friends, family, and you know colleagues who are constantly like reminding me like, hey, you know, you might not see this, but like you're actually like contributing to this world. So
Awesome.
those were like the three different symbols that kind of attaches the butterfly and the meaning of, I guess, my stories. And we've utilized the butterfly kind of in just an organic way throughout our brand and our brand identity.
It's a great story, and it's really really cool to see that actually at that time there were butterflies and it was able to relate, you know, to that so perfectly.
Yeah, how it came from something that was just there and how you're able to find, you know, meaning in it in a way that you can continue it in a way that, you know, it's not just going to fade out because now there's like a thing behind it that keeps it going.
Well, we typically like to end kind of each podcast with this question, which would be if you were to here we go again. We're back at the beginning.
Well, we like to, because I mean, especially now, you know, we are at a point. What is today? The 11th of March, 2022. Possible brink of a third world war. Well, I have a good point for this.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people are pretty down right now, very validly, you know, and it is one of the things that's going to keep people going is their passion for things. And if there was one thing that you could say, like, to bring people up and let them know if they're interested in maybe doing something, not necessarily just fashion, but in the art field or just pursuing their passion, what's the thing that you would guide them towards as a positive note to keep them going, you know, especially in a time like this where, you know, everything's pretty uncertain?
Man,
I know it's a
did
tough
I
one.
phrase that a little bit too deeply?
Yeah. No. I think even just like I think reflecting back to when I didn't, you know, believe in myself and I was so scared to take the jump. Whatever it is that you're passionate about, you could impact people with it. And really, when times seem very hard, I think those are the times where you should like just double down and use your passion as a way of communicating what you're feeling, or even just taking that chance on yourself. Like a lot of times, like for me, even now, like something that I've like implemented in I guess my day-to-day practice is like doing what's hard. And that there's so much growth in that. And at the end of the day, like you don't realize it right away, but like a month from now, you know, 2 weeks from now, you're like, wow, that one decision that was so hard for me to make, I made it, and it's leading up to all of these things. And growth comes from making those hard decisions, or doing things that might seem scary. Another thing is the believing in yourself. Like this, man, that's something anyone that's passionate about something, like just believe in yourself and know that you're truly like contributing to this world, and you're as important as, you know, I would say a doctor, you know, a teacher, like, you know, art and creativity needs to get fostered, and we need more people who are passionate. So if you don't think you're important, like I'll tell you, like you're important because you are important. Like, and we need passionate people. We need more passionate people in this world.
There you go. Well, Brema, thank you so much for coming on today. We really appreciate you taking the time out.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys so much for having me. It was great talking to you guys.
Anything you want to push? Socials, new drops?
Any new drops? I know that you dropped something today, but is there anything in the future that's coming up?
What do you want to tell the people about?
I mean, I'm working on a lot of growth happening in the next year or two. But if you want to follow the journey, you can follow the social at Unfinished Legacy, and then Brema __Brema is like my Instagram name. I try to post on all social platforms like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and then slowly try Twitter. But yeah, you guys can connect. Feel free to reach out. Always looking to connect with new people. And yeah, I appreciate you guys so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Brema.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. And everyone who watched and listened, we'll see you next time.